Good evening. It's nice to be doing this in person this year.
Being recorded.
Good evening. It's nice to be doing this in person this year. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Liz Zezima. I'm the proud representative for District 4 and RTM Majority Leader. Thank you, too, to the many town employees, elected officials, volunteers, and board and commission members whose service to Fairfield makes this town a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you again to the voters of Fairfield for placing your trust in us to lead this body, the RTM Representative Town Meeting, the Board of Ed, and the Board of Finance. This speaks to our effective bipartisan governance, legislative, fiscal, and community priorities, and the work we have done on behalf of the entire town. We reflect the values of our community: respect, inclusion, equality, and good governance. We also stand for good fiscal stewardship, economic development, investment in our future, and strong public schools. As Democrats, we believe in good government. We must work diligently, thoughtfully, and always in the service to the betterment of our community. This requires us to ask hard questions and engage in public debate, a process which has produced significant savings for the taxpayer and an improved quality of life. In addition to being focused on the financial health of the town and delivering a return on the investment of taxpayers, we have enacted legislation by creating ordinances that make life better for our community, like the creation of an arts commission and a ban on crumb rubber fill in our artificial turf fields. We are working on additional ordinances to create a fair rent commission, an ethics blueprint to ensure fair, transparent, and accountable government, revisions to further limit disruptive noise and light pollution, a complete streets ordinance increasing bike and pedestrian safety and to better control traffic congestion. We are also taking up a real property ordinance, which we can explain further at a later date. We're forming an energy committee in response to the recently enacted utility rate hikes to pursue initiatives that will save Fairfield taxpayers money and provide environmental alternatives. In response to the recommendations laid out in the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force blueprint delivered to the First Selectwoman over a year ago, the Democrats invited our Republican colleagues to create a resolution that declares racism a public health crisis, following 28 other Connecticut towns and the state in making this declaration. We were very disappointed that this measure failed along party lines. We will hold the administration accountable for other blueprint recommendations, including the establishment of a permanent commission on racial equity and justice and to hire a director of community justice and belonging. While these recommendations are under consideration, we strongly urge the administration to act on each of these items to ensure that Fairfield is a community that identifies and eliminates racial and ethnic disparities. We fully support and endorse these findings and expect the administration to adopt these measures. It is what our community supports and what all in our diverse community deserve. As granted by our authority, we will act on these recommendations as necessary to provide a framework that represents our collective values and our commitment to equality. We have also faced several challenges and have identified ways in which aspects of town government are not working as they should. We not only expect these lapses to be fixed, but in the last year of this term, we are committed to working alongside the administration and other town bodies to make sure our government is working effectively. The community should demand no less and expects us to work in a unified, bipartisan manner to deliver results and solutions. Campaign promises made to address the fill pile contamination issue and its aftermath have not materialized. And in fact, as demonstrated by internal audits and matters that have come before this body, we are disappointed to learn that many of the very measures promised to tighten controls, increase transparency, and prevent any further abuses have not been enacted. One example is we do not have a new purchasing policy pending input from the administration 3 years later. In some ways, we are more vulnerable now rather than further protected from harm and liability. Nothing less than the urgent attention to these lapses will restore trust in government. We do not yet have a final workable plan to remediate Penfield or the required transparency of our negotiations with FEMA. We have called on the administration to include the public in this process by holding a town hall meeting so that we can make decisions together based on safety, sound financial investment, and to prevent flooding of the beach neighborhoods. This process should include the use of a neutral mediator to ensure that the safest, fairest, and most cost-effective remediation is developed that complies with the regulatory agencies, and one that best serves the needs of our community. We are lacking professional job descriptions, ROIs, or return on investment analysis, as well as performance and participation metrics for many important positions and functions of town government. Most notable is a full accounting of the duties and responsibilities of the high-priced Chief Administrative Officer role, the first of its kind in Fairfield. This is how we hold employees, volunteers, and ourselves accountable and account for your tax dollars at work. We still do not have a working hybrid system for remote meeting participation. This not only makes it more difficult for us to conduct business, but it makes public participation more difficult. This does not reflect a commitment to transparency. As required by our charter, the process of appointing members to our boards and commissions is mired in partisan favor and erodes not only mandated party balance, but leaves many residents out of what should be a transparent and fair process. We call on the administration to remedy this by being more inclusive and holding the process to the highest bipartisan standards possible. Our town government should reflect our community and be free from the overreach of favoritism and politics. And the process must be one of bipartisan inclusion on the Board of Selectmen itself. Many of our union contracts are more than a year past expiration and have not yet been renegotiated. Our firefighters are now without a contract for over 500 days, and their contract is in arbitration. Hardworking union members, especially those who ensure our public safety, have a reasonable expectation that they will not wait for over a year, and sometimes two, to renegotiate their compensation or to provide necessary staffing. They should not be forced to work without a contract. In a time of high inflation, they do not see any adjustment to their back pay. We are taxing our residents to keep sizable sums in contingency funds to pay out lapsed increases. This is both unfair and inefficient, and a disregard for those who serve our community in various critical roles. We thank the members of the Charter Revision Commission for their hard work seeking to update and modernize our town charter. Fairfield voters rejected the final charter revision ballot item for one very simple reason. The multitude of changes were consolidated into one omnibus question that deprived voters of the ability to vote for those measures they agreed with, instead of an all-or-nothing option. This stands in sharp contrast to how other towns and cities in Connecticut have conducted this important exercise, including our own past charter revisions. A strong, engaged, and informed bipartisan group came forward to insist many of the more unfavorable proposals be eliminated from the process. Those efforts were successful, but the end product was not one the town could get behind. It lacked the many thoughtful suggestions made to include important changes that were not considered by the Commission. Much can and should be learned from this failed process. We can and must do better in the next effort to revise our charter in a way that strengthens our government rather than weakens oversight. Voters had a clear preference to keep the RTM at its current size to preserve their democratic representation as well as to provide checks and balances on the executive branch. Our commitment to citizens, voters, and taxpayers as a body and as a party is to govern effectively, solve problems, and provide a vision for our future as a town. Included in our priorities is economic development, a transparent and responsive government, expanded services, improved quality of life, excellent and well-funded schools, and good fiscal stewardship. I want to mention, in response to the First Select Woman's announcement of 75 new brick-and-mortar businesses, which of course we're thrilled to hear, and it's very good news for our town, but it really does stand in great contrast to the incessant claims that Connecticut is in some sort of downward spiral. I also want to say that it is thanks to the Biden administration that the ARPA funds that we have were applying to many projects, many improvements. We really should be thankful for that, and we will see those results in actual completed projects. We are blessed to have an engaged and thoughtful community that is our honor to serve. We call on all of you to make your voice heard to the administration on any of the issues I present to you tonight, along with your own concerns and priorities. We are here to serve, and we want to do that in the most transparent and inclusive way possible. Because of high demand, we have a critical housing shortage and are eager to see development of affordable housing. We want to work together as a town and with the state to make that a reality so that more young people can come to this town, or children can stay in this town and enjoy the amazing amenities, services, and quality of life that we have to offer. We see Fairfield as the jewel of Fairfield County and envision a bright future for all who choose to call this exceptional town home. Please join us in making Fairfield the best possible community to live, work, and raise a family. It does truly take a village. Together we can guide our town to become the leading example of success and prosperity. Thank you for your time and attention tonight, and for the trust you place in us as your elected representative and leaders.